All right, how's it going, everybody? Nick Marro, DFS here. Should be with Smitty. We're dealing with some issues on the back end. Technically, seems like the link to get him in isn't working. Chuck tried as well, but we're going to try to get that ironed out. But we got a bunch of you in here waiting, so we figured I'd just go live and hopefully we can get one of the fellas in here to support me as we go through. Good news is it's a two-game slate, so hopefully the delay doesn't hurt you too badly. Other good news is that we got plenty of time here to go through these two games and hopefully get you guys the information you need. So, just me for now, but get those questions in. Appreciate you all being here. Obviously, two game slate tonight, NBA Cup. But we'll get right into it here. Just going to check out the chat. Again, appreciate you guys being here as always. We got HB Card saying, two gamers. What are we even doing with our life? Yeah, last night was rough. Scotty Barnes, whoever called out the OG defense, I don't know if that was the only reason Barnes had that bad night. I did watch most of that game, but good call on that. The Barnes fade ended up being the move. Heath saying, "What's up, fellas?" We got Sweet Dog, I think Luke. James asking if we're going to fade Luca. Definitely going to talk through that strategy point in just a minute. Some saying these are the easiest slates. Others certainly disagree, but yeah, same big contest as always, though. So definitely keep that in mind. First game should be good. Definitely waiting on some news in that one. Spurious, frustrated that we didn't start on time, but appreciate you guys being here anyway, as always. And where should we have the biggest leverage on the slate? So, first and foremost, shouts out to Reen here as well. Getting all the shouts out in as always. When we have these short slates, it's very easy to get to every comment. Not so much when we're dealing with 12 or 13 games, but I'm going to fly solo for the time being. We're about to get into the game by game breakdown, but first, taking a look at ownership. Highest owned play on the slate, at least on DK, Dylan Harper, the rookie for the Spurs, cover boy today on the video here as well. Very popular over on FanDuel. We're seeing Luca popping here as well. It seems like that game between the Spurs and the Lakers is going to be more popular than the early game between the Suns and the Thunder. So I guess the quick answer to getting leverage, maybe to lean into the first game a bit more. Um, but yeah, much wider spread in that one. I think we're looking at 14 points compared to 7 point spread in the second. So, yeah, if we're going to game stack, I would say the second game also has a nearly 20-point higher total. So the second game is more appealing, but keep in mind the field is getting there as well. Taking a quick look here in chat, seeing if we could get any updates on the back end again. Hopefully we could get Smitty or Chuck or someone in here soon, but seems like an EVMux issue, which is the software we use for broadcasting. But we'll iron out the details for sure. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get into the breakdown. Yeah, Scotty hurt us all last night, guys. Again, OG was a big part of that. Scotty was missing shots, though. I mean, the Raptors just didn't look great. We did just get word that Devin Booker is out, and that was the news I was waiting on. So all this stalling, all these technical difficulties, a little bit of synchronicity here. Serendipitous now that we have this Booker news. Obviously, that's going to change some things, create some value here in Phoenix. But let's start with Phoenix. Going to pull them up here. The model hasn't updated yet for the Booker news, so keep that in mind. We will refresh at some point. But with Devin Booker out, we're probably going to see Colin Gillespie get the start at point guard again, alongside Grayson Allen, Dylan Brooks, Royce O'Neal, and Mark Williams. Obviously, with Booker in, he's going to dominate this team in usage. But with him out and off the floor, that's going to trickle down to the rest of this group. We've seen some really good games out of Dylan Brooks, some really bad games out of Dylan Brooks. But what we do know is he's going to lead this team in usage. I mean, he has every single game with Booker out, over 30% now in four straight contests, 38% against Houston and LA. So, yeah, if we're looking for a guy who's going to take a ton of shots tonight, Dylan Brooks is probably that guy. Colin Gillespie, really talented young guard, probably getting the start here. I'm like 90% sure he will. He's been pretty solid. If this game does stay close, you have to imagine he's going to be producing at a pretty high level here as well. So while the field wasn't getting to a ton of Phoenix, we have to expect that to change. Grayson Allen as well, probably not ahead of those other two for me. He just hasn't been shooting that well, hasn't really been as aggressive offensively. He was dealing with an injury for the past few weeks. He is back, but hasn't quite looked like himself. But maybe that's a leverage point. But I will say, first guy we're going to want to get to for Phoenix is probably Brooks, followed by Gillespie. And then Jordan Goodwin, going to be coming off the bench, but he's going to see an uptick in minutes. Haven't really seen the ceiling out of him for a while, but on a two-game slate, you could certainly do worse. Shouts out our man, the douche, our resident Suns fan here. He did call out Jamari Bouye last time, but that was if we had another injury. I think, who was it? Brooks was questionable. Brooks ended up playing. Bouye didn't really get there, but if you're desperate to get different, probably plays 12 to 15 minutes, maybe a few more if this game were to blow out. So you can make a case for him. Then talking about the front court, I mean, Mark Williams, fine where he's priced. But it's interesting. In close games lately, this is notable. Osa Ighodaro has been closing. And OKC is a little bit bigger than some of the teams they've been playing recently, but not really. I mean, Oso getting more minutes. Maybe if you're desperate for value, he's someone you're looking at here. Hopefully, we got the douche in the chat. He can weigh in on this. Definitely has his finger on the pulse of the Suns, kind of similarly to how I do on the Nets. But yeah, I do think Oso is interesting because he is a little bit underprojected in terms of his minutes, in my opinion. I think they like his defense a bit more than what they've been getting out of Williams. Obviously, Williams the higher ceiling, the better fantasy producer in terms of upside, but a few extra minutes for a cheap play like that could definitely go a long way. The issue is on DK. He is center only. Does have forward eligibility over on FanDuel, though. Again, low floor, but a few extra minutes for him could be important. And maybe he gets run in a blowout regardless. So he's one of those hybrid type plays that we used to describe Pritchard this way, obviously not anymore. But there's guys that are in the rotation if the game's close, and they still play in the fourth quarter if the game blows out. I think Oso fits that mold perfectly. He's definitely someone I have circled in that regard. But again, the guys we're going to want to get to the most here for Phoenix, probably Dylan Brooks, followed by Colin Gillespie. You could mix in the rest. But Oso, to me, kind of a sneaky tournament play. Definitely have to keep an eye on the rest of the news there. But like I said, no Jalen Green, no Devin Booker. The rest of the starters look fine. Royce O'Neal is like a last guy in. Okay. I mean, he finally did have a good shooting game with 3 for 5 from 3 against Minnesota. Forward, obviously, a little bit harder to fill than guard is tonight. So you can make a case for Royce. I don't know that I'll be getting to him all that aggressively, but obviously all the starters are going to see an uptick in usage here with Booker off the floor. But most of that usage has been going to Dylan Brooks. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, we got a few guys in here. Appreciate you guys keeping me up on the news, especially running solo right now. And yeah, Spurrier is saying that Ighodaro is showing a little bit in Sims. That's good to hear. And like I said, the difference is he's not going to start, but he's going to close. And those extra minutes do go a long way. If that's a trend that's going to continue moving forward, we'll start to see his projection come up across the industry. But if we could be ahead of that curve, that's obviously a good thing. So Ighodaro is someone to keep an eye on. Ryan Dunn, another name off the bench. Boomer bust. I don't have a ton of interest in him. There's some guys that are value in the OKC side that we're about to talk through that I think I'd rather get to in the same price range. So OKC, huge favorites here, obviously with Booker out, no surprise. Hartenstein, Isaiah Joe, both out, as is Nikola Topic and Thomas Sorber. So SGA has been pretty good lately. I will say I'm not getting to a ton of him. His usage has come down pretty dramatically since Jalen Williams has returned to the lineup. Even with Hartenstein out, we haven't seen those huge ceiling games from SGA in a while. Maybe tonight, NBA Cup, we finally get that. But me personally, the two Thunder players I like to pay up for here are going to be Williams and Chet Holmgren. Holmgren sees a boost in usage with Hartenstein off the floor. It's minor, but the bigger boost for him is rebounding. And like I said, Williams has been very aggressive, I think, as they get him more acclimated into the new season here, taking away some of those shots from SGA. And playing consistent minutes. So I really do like Jalen Williams. I think if you're paying up for anything, he looks good. And even in these games where OKC is blowing other teams out, like against Dallas, he had 35 fantasy points in just 24 minutes, 45 fantasy points for Jalen Williams against Utah in just 25 minutes. He's been excellent. Chet Holmgren as well, pretty high ceiling lately, even in limited minutes, 42 points against the Utah Jazz last time out in just 22 minutes. And then SGA, another guy. I mean, they're all getting there in limited minutes. So while we are a little bit concerned about the blowout here, it's not to the point where you don't want to be playing these guys. When it comes to value, Lou Dort's going to be very appealing. Obviously, not the most involved on the offensive side of things. He's averaging about a 12% usage rate since he returned from injury, but he's so cheap. He's going to play minutes. He's just kind of tough to get away from as a piece to open things up if you're trying to go a little bit more stars and scrubs. I definitely trust his minutes more than someone like Alex Caruso. Caruso has been historically the better fantasy point per minute producer, but he seems to be on a minutes cap unless this team's in the playoffs. He did get to 24 against Phoenix last time out. Looked pretty good there, but yeah, that was over 2 weeks ago. I don't know that first game back from injury we can expect the same run for Caruso. So core plays for me here. I think Williams is my favorite. Jalen Williams with an E, not an I, because he's also relevant with Hartenstein out. But Holmgren would be second for me, followed by Dort. I don't mind getting to some SGA as a tournament pivot, but those three, Williams, Holmgren, Dort, definitely the more appealing options to me. Looking at Cason Wallace, who's also going to start kind of that hybrid type play that maybe he could play if the game's close or if it does turn into a blowout. Lately, he hasn't been playing the blowout minutes, even as a young guard, so that's a bit concerning. But with Isaiah Joe out, I do think you could maybe see a few minutes as like a trickle down. AJ Mitchell, Aaron Wiggins coming off the bench as well. They really haven't been getting extra run and blowouts. Trying to see where it's been going. I mean, Brandon Carlson, this is not a guy I really planned on getting to at all today, but if you're desperate for value, he has gone for 20 plus minutes in back to back games for OKC. You could see him get a little bit of extra run. Chris Youngblood, not an option for me, only 8 minutes even in blowouts. I'm just clicking through the guys here on my other screen, just full transparency. I think it's actually Carlson that of all the cheap guys I want to get to, and that kind of sucks to say because he's not popping in the model. But again, in a blowout, I do think he plays almost the entire fourth quarter. And then the other Jalen Williams, floating around 20 minutes, he's fine. I just really don't have a ton of love for him. I mean, center only on DK makes him tough to get to. Just hasn't really been flashing that ceiling. So again, quick recap here on OKC. Really like Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren. Fine getting to Lou Dort. He's my preferred value piece. You can mix in Wallace, Mitchell, and Wiggins. Keep in mind, no Isaiah Joe should create a few extra minutes for some of these other guys off the bench. Um, yep, gotta love LeBrick, his sub 8K on FanDuel. We'll talk through the Lakers here in just a minute. Checking out the Discord to see if we got any updates. Still no one here joining me, so we'll keep plugging away. I did just send a new guest link. It seems like we're having issues on the back end, though. Is what it is, guys. I'll keep plugging through. Obviously, we can go solo if we have to, especially on a 2 game slate like this. So, all right, we're through the first game now. And like I said, even in blowouts, the OKC guys have been getting there. Obviously, we know Booker. Dylan Brooks is going to be taking a ton of shots. His usage has been ridiculous. So, most of the ownership going to the second game, but I'm very comfortable playing some pieces from this first game. Kind of get the patented sip in with this being a solo show. Shouts out to Brian. But let's get into the second game here now. We got the Spurs taking on the Lakers in LA. Lakers around a 7.5 point favorite. This game with the higher total, 241.5 points compared to 223.5 in the early game. So let's dig in here. Starting with the Spurs. Wemby's out. He should be back soon, but he's not going to be available tonight. I think a lot of people thought he might be, but good that we already had that news. Jordan McLaughlin is questionable. Harrison Ingram is out. Few other G Leaguers listed. Nothing too significant, if we're being completely honest. Let's see what else we got going on here. So when it comes to ownership, pretty interesting. The most popular plays for San Antonio are these guys in the kind of lower mid range. We're seeing Harrison Barnes, Dylan Harper popping towards the top. Harper, the most popular play on DK right now. I do think we're going to see some Suns overtake that now that we have that Booker news, but it is notable. His assist rate has been really solid off the bench, running that second unit. Somewhat inconsistent, but 3 of his last 4 games over 25 fantasy points. So even with the return of Stephen Castle, I'm very comfortable getting to Harper as a value piece. Just keep in mind, he is absolute chalk on both sides. I do think he's underpriced, but if you're playing a lot of Dylan Harper, you need to get different elsewhere. Stephon Castle back. He's been on a minutes limit. Only played 23 minutes last time out against New Orleans. That's his first game back. I think we can see a few more from him tonight, but not to the point that I want to be playing him. I think De'Aaron Fox looks pretty good here. Obviously, not the worst matchup for him facing the Lakers' backcourt defense. He's been pretty inconsistent. We haven't seen those 50-point ceilings from him lately, but on a 2 game slate, you can certainly make the case, especially on FanDuel where he's only 8,300, definitely underpriced over there. As far as like upside in terms of point per dollar, my favorite play here is probably Devin Vassell. Had a really poor shooting game against the Pelicans, but prior to that, he was on a decent run. I do think he's a little bit too cheap on both sides, especially FanDuel again, where he's 5,900. As I'm saying all this, kind of coming to the conclusion that pricing is softer over on FanDuel tonight, so definitely keep that in mind. Luke Cornett, those first few games with Wemby out was pretty terrible, if we're being completely honest. But since then, he's bounced back. 3 straight games over 25 minutes, which we do love to see. Very low usage rate, but he is rebounding pretty well. Even in foul trouble, getting to value for the most part. And yeah, here against the Lakers, it's not a terrible matchup for him. I think he can stick on the floor. Obviously, has some risk involved in rostering him because he is going to be very popular, but that ownership has come down throughout the day. So that's interesting, and I think it's worth noting. Earlier today, he was very popular on both sites. Center only on FanDuel, though, now down around 20%. I think he's useful as a piece of value. Is he my favorite center play? Probably not. But on DK, where you could play deuce centers and he's only 4,800, I will have a lot of him over there. Other than that, I mean, we always have Keldon as an option off the bench. High ceiling, low floor. Julian Champagnie can say the same thing. I do prefer Keldon slightly, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to get some Champagnie into lineups tonight. I'd probably only want one or the other, if I'm being completely honest. It's rare that we see them both going off. Again, both coming off the bench. But one or the other, I think you're fine to get to as a last piece in. And they both provide some leverage upside versus someone like Harrison Barnes, who's a similar play, definitely a higher floor, but he's volatile as well. And if we do see Keldon or Julian really going off here, it could cut into the minutes of someone like Barnes. So maybe there's a leverage point for you. I will say, obviously, my favorite play off the bench is going to be Harper. I just like that you could play him at guard, shooting guard or point guard on both sides. He just feels too cheap. And we have him at 24 minutes, but we've seen him go over that number. He played 25 last time out. Not that that's a huge boost, but if he's playing well, I don't see why they would take him off the floor. And again, I don't think this game blows out. I think it's going to be super competitive. But if it were to blow out, I think Harper as a rookie is someone who could get some extra run in the fourth quarter. So he's going to be involved in a tight game. He's going to be involved in the game if it gets out of hand. Dylan Harper, one of the better Spurs to be getting to here tonight. Again, I don't really want to get to Castle. I just think the minutes limit on him is enough to not want to pay 7,500 or 400, depending on which site you're playing on. I do like Vassell. He's scoring dependent, though. High ceiling, low floor. Cornette looks really good. Barnes is like a last piece in. I do think him being 50+% owned is a little bit scary, though. Would try to find ways to get away from it. It's going to be tricky. And as much as I like Cornette, if he does get in foul trouble, maybe we see more Olynyk. I don't really love Kelly O on the Spurs team right now. The minutes just haven't been there. Jeremy Sochan, someone off the bench who could maybe fall into more minutes if you're not playing Cornette, but they're very, very risky. So again, in summary, I do like Harper. I like Johnson and Champagnie off the bench. Would probably want one or the other. Barnes is fine as that last piece in. He's just extremely popular. I do like Cornette, but he has a wide range of outcomes. De'Aaron Fox, if you could afford him on DK, is a nice tournament play. On FanDuel, kind of a no-brainer. Just underpriced for what his ceiling should be here. And then yeah, bringing up the comment from Luke again. Gotta love LeBrick, sub 8K. We got a comment here from Frost as well. Wondering about Luca because when they played SA last time, LeBron and Austin were out, so he might not have the same kind of game he did early in the season. First, you're right, Frost. I want to start there. Obviously, with LeBron and Reeves in the lineup, he's not going to see the same usage, but it's a 2 game slate. So you don't necessarily need Luca to have 70 fantasy points. If he has 65 and the second best guy has 50 or 45, you're still going to want his raw points in your lineup to be optimal. So on a bigger slate, I'd be more comfortable getting away from Luca. But on just a 2 game slate, I think we have enough value, especially in that early game now with Booker out, to get to Luca pretty easily. I am going to have him in most of my lineups. I do think he's by far the best play in terms of OF index, and it shows in the model as well. 2 points higher than SGA, who would be your direct pivot. But again, the usage for Jalen Williams has really eaten into SGA's upside, at least currently. I do think we start to see that go back in the favor of SGA over the coming games and weeks. But right now, Luca is just by far the best play, in my opinion. Even with these guys back in the lineup, you're probably not going to get those 70 or 80-point scores. I mean, it's certainly possible. But the raw points alone are probably enough to get him into your lineups here tonight for the most part. So starting with Luca, absolutely love him. Looking at the injury report, no Maxi Kleber. That's it. So really nothing else we need to discuss in terms of injuries. They are getting Marcus Smart back. He is a rotational piece, decent defender. Obviously can get hot from 3, but we have him at 18 minutes. I think they're going to be kind of slow in easing him back in. And obviously with LeBron and Reeves and Luka in, they don't necessarily need to extend him. Reeves himself, I think, is a good play. Could go a little bit overlooked here. Would prefer him I don't know. It's interesting. I think I slightly prefer him over LeBron, even though he's a little bit more expensive because he's much lower owned, about a third of the ownership over on FanDuel. And yes, he's crazy expensive, but if you could find the salary to make that pivot, I really like that as a leverage point. LeBron did finally have a big game, first time coming out of injury against Philly. I think that 10-point like streak he had going was kind of to his own detriment. It'd been an issue for him, kind of in his own head, but to see him miss that and then flip that narrative into a win too, right? They got that game-winning shot where he passed it over to Rui. Good to see. It seems like that monkey's off his back. LeBron looked great last time out, shot really well against Philly. I do think he's kind of a court play for you over on FanDuel, but again, it's going to be tough to fit James, Reeves, and Luka in a lineup. I think if you could find the salary to get up to Reeves from LeBron, that's one of my preferred leverage points tonight. But I will say I don't want to get away from Luka on either side. I think if I could jam Luka in as much as possible, I'm going to. It's a 2 game slate. Obviously, if you're playing 150 lineups, set that cap somewhere, maybe around 80%. Like he's going to be 50+% owned on both sites. But in those lineups without Luka, definitely get to Reeves and James. For me, prioritizing Luka, followed by Reeves, especially on DK, where he's pretty much the same price as LeBron. But on FanDuel, I think that's a really good leverage point. DeAndre Ayton's been playing well. He's actually better with Luka in the lineup. Obviously, doesn't have the same usage, but plays well in the pick and roll. And that team is just more competitive with Luka on the floor. Obviously, he can kind of do what he needs to do, stick around the boards where he's relied on a bit more for offense if Luka's off the floor. Not that we have a huge sample of data with Luka off the floor, but he did just have a kid, went to Slovenia for the birth of his child. So shouts out to the Doncic family. But yeah, I think Aiton, as far as pure center options go tonight, definitely one of the best. If you consider Chet Holmgren a center, I'd rank him higher in terms of raw point upside. But Aiton for me, number one point per dollar if you can get to him. Rui, with all these guys in, really tough for me to want to get to him. He would be the first kind of quote unquote value piece from the Lakers I'd have any interest in. I really don't want to get to much of guys like Jackson Hayes, Smart, Vincent Laravia. Because again, the ownership really concentrates first to Luka, then to Reeves, then LeBron. Everyone else is kind of left with scraps. The thing about Ayton is he gets a lot of boards. He does other things, and the minutes have been there for him. This is a good matchup too against Cornette and Olynyk, whoever's out there at center for the Spurs. So Ayton to me, really solid option here. Again, Luka going to be a core play, tough to get away from. But Kleber, the only guy out tonight. This team's actually a little bit, healthier than they have been. Ado Fierro has been in the rotation lately. I mean, they're trying to get Laravia minutes. I just don't really trust these cheaper secondary options for the Lakers, even on a 2 game slate. Like the cheaper secondary plays for the Spurs are appealing, for the Suns are appealing, even the Thunder are appealing. But the cheaper secondary guys for the Lakers, for me, just not something I'm really prioritizing at all. All right. Let's take a look here. Austin or Jalen Williams straight up, really struggling with that one-on-one. So, Torian, that's a great question. First, I'll say this. If you don't have Luca, it's definitely Reeves, regardless of website. I think you probably do have Luca, though. For me, I mean, I like Jalen Williams. I don't know. It's tough. I would probably go with Williams just because I'm so heavy on Luca, just thinking there might be some correlation there. But in that same breath, the model is rating Reeves almost 2 full points higher. So again, it depends on your lineup construction. Over on FanDuel, I think that 600 does make a difference. Like even on a 2 game slate, yes, you could leave salary on the table, but pricing is tight tonight. So it's enough for me to say maybe go to Williams, but if you have a lineup without Luca, it's definitely Reeves. I'm going to say Williams as my answer. But again, it's a tough 2 1-on-1, Tori, and we try not to answer those too much here. We try to just lean on the model, and if you are just leaning on the model, the answer would be Reeves. But again, I'm so heavy on Luca. I want that 70, 80 point game. Not that we need it. And if that outcome is going to come to fruition, it's probably not the best night for Reeves. So again, I'd lean Williams slightly, but I don't think you could go wrong either way. Two of my favorite plays in that price range. Um, yeah, guys, I don't know that we're going to get Smitty in here, unfortunately. We do have Jayhawk going live in the Discord at 7 p.m. But I'll go live here another few minutes. If you guys have any questions, definitely get them in. I'm happy to talk through any strategy, any rotations, any things like that. Just a 2 game slate, but I'll get into a dummy build now here. And let me pull up the model on my other monitor so I don't have to click in and out. But I'm starting with Luca here. I just think he's really tough to get away from. I think Reeves looks great as well, but you are making that decision between him or someone like Jalen Williams. Um, Again, with the news that we're getting out of Phoenix, I do want to get to some Dylan Brooks. I think he's going to once again see ridiculous shot volume, 35-ish plus percent usage. If this game stays close, he's very likely to be the reason for it. When we're talking about dirt cheap value tonight, I'm never a guy who's high on Lou Dort, but I do think he's someone at 3,900 who's going to play 30 or so minutes that you could get into your lineups and feel pretty good about. Two centers over on DK. I'm more comfortable getting to Cornette. I will say there's some risk there. He has gotten into foul trouble at times. It's not the best matchup against Dayton, but he is dirt cheap on a 2 game slate. I do think he makes a lot of sense. Barnes is going to be the chalk here at power forward. I don't mind it. It's just a very thin position. I would love to get to Chet if I can, but for the sake of this video and just for the sake of this build, I will go with Barnes. This is kind of the chalkier play. At guard, I mean, Gillespie, kind of tough to get away from. I definitely prefer him over Grayson Allen if you're picking between the two. And then, yeah, I mean, I don't know, 55 left per player. I would maybe choose one of Champagne or Johnson, see what we're left with down there. I don't know. Champagne, does it get us 8 in? I was hoping to get to 8 in there. I don't know that I'm going to, though. If we go forward, Rui, it's hit or miss, man. I don't mind it, though. But those last two spots, you can kind of pick and choose. I don't think it's crazy to go with maybe, I don't know, Vassell, upgrade Rui to Champagne or Barnes, or not Barnes, Keldon, something like that. Um, but yeah, the other guy I wanted to mention is that value play Iguodala. Like if you're using him for value, you can get another pay up. Would probably have to come down from Gillespie, but you could maybe fit in someone like Reeves or a Chet or a Jalen Williams. Yeah. Yeah, if we go Grayson Allen, Holmgren, Iguodala, the first build I had was definitely more low risk. This would be a high risk build, but if you're looking to get different on a 2 game slate, something like this does look pretty good to me. All right, let's keep it going. Drones here asking any Nick Smith. Let me pull him up and look at the game log. So I do think Smith is a guy who can be effective, but with Marcus Smart coming back tonight, I think he's going to lose minutes. He played 24 against Boston. That game was a blowout. Most of his run came in the blowout. On a 2 game slate, I'm not going to tell you no if you got a good gut feeling about it, but keep in mind Smart's been out. I think Smart's going to take those minutes away from Smith. Much better defender. He's a vet. LeBron, Luca, they're all very comfortable being out there with Smart. So I would say no Smith because Smart's back. But on a 2 game slate, I hate to say no to anyone. But yeah, Jones, if you're only playing a lineup or two, no. But if you're playing a bunch and you're looking to get different in a couple, you're fine to mix them in. Appreciate you, Chuck, saying I'm a beast for mixing it, getting through this weird slate solo. I mean, yeah, man, but it's 2 games, right? If it was a 13 gamer, I think I'd have more trouble. But yeah, used to doing the solo streams for UFC. So not the first rodeo, which is a good thing for sure. But appreciate you being here, man. SGA overdue for a slate breaker. Hey, like I said, 2 game slate. You got a gut call. Tonight could be the night. I mean, you pull Luca. This is how I would do it, right? If you're not playing Luca, and I am playing Luca, I would go with SGA, and then I would prioritize getting LeBron and/or Reeves into your lineups, especially Reeves, honestly, because he has had some huge games. But if you could get both of them and SGA, that is the ideal Luca fade, in my opinion. But again, I'm going to be very heavy on Luca. We'd also have to downgrade something else here, something like this. Like this would be the Luca fade lineup, quote unquote. Still love Reeves, James, and SGA. Like if you're not playing Luca and those guys all go off, I think that's how this night ends without Luca being optimal. So just keep that in mind. Just kind of play it out that way. Chuck say playing all the Luca kind of think Phoenix keeps it close enough. So I have a bunch of SGA also. Yeah, if you could fit both, maybe that's what we do with the dummy here. Appreciate that segue, Chuck, helping me here produce even without being in the room. But let's go with Luca SGA and kind of see what we can do from there. We're going to have to get really cheap. Like I said, I think that my favorite dirt cheap play tonight is Dort just because of the minutes. I think Oso in a close game is going to close again. Is he safe? No. But if you're jamming in studs, I think you're going to have to play some of these guys. Again, I don't love Cornette at his price. I don't mind him, though. I would like to get to Aiton. I wish one of these guys had forward eligibility. They don't. I think Rui's fine. Like I said, minutes matter more than anything on these 2 game slates. Like if you don't love a player and you're using these cheap guys to get up elsewhere, I think it's okay. I don't trust Rui, but I would rather play him for cheap than some of these other dirt cheap guys where I don't know that the minutes are going to necessarily be there. So let's go ahead and get Rui in. I'm going to jam in Aiton, and then I'm going to go ahead and see what we get at power forward. Probably one of the Spurs. I mean, Barnes, I think we have to play 2 of them. Let's go Keldon. I don't know. I do really want to get Dylan Brooks in as well, but let's go Keldon, Barnes. Do we get Dylan Brooks? Oh, we have more than enough. All right. Yeah. So I'm kind of selling it short here. We could maybe upgrade Keldon. Do we get Chet? I was hoping we get Chet or LeBron. I don't know. There's LeBron. But yeah, you're right, Chuck. It's much, much easier to fit these two studs over on FanDuel. Honestly, looking at it right now, I think you can very easily fit SGA and Lucas. So while I did kind of glaze over, like say, I really want to get to Jalen Williams, I really want to get to Chet, you can fit SGA so easily over on FanDuel that I think it's a pretty good idea. Maybe we come off LeBron, put him in at small forward, and see what we have for value at power forward. 4K flat. Yeah, the other Jalen, I don't think it's crazy. I think I'd move some things around, maybe go Cornet. Um, get a little cheaper there. But yeah, it's definitely notable that it's very easy to build with SGA here. What I would say though, yeah, my first thought was to maybe do something more like this. Let me clear this. I'm going to go Luca first, and then I'm going to get the other two studs, quote unquote, for OKC and Jalen Williams and Chet. Keep in mind, no Hartenstein. Definitely making that a little bit easier. I'm still very comfortable going to Dort. Like I said, on a night where I'm desperate to get different, I think Oso closing recently is enough of a trend that I think I want to try to take a stand there and hope it works out. Definitely going to jam in Dylan Brooks, see how that looks. What's Gillespie's price over here? 6'9", kind of pricey. Let's go Harper, cover boy. Didn't get him into any of these other lineups yet. One of my preferred value plays. Champagne, since we haven't played him yet. And then we're left with pretty much any center we want, right? We could go Mark Williams. We could go Aiton. We could move Chet down to center. I kind of want to see what that looks like. Let's do that. Power forward 7,200. Oh man, moving everything around. We could almost get LeBron in here too. We go LeBron. You have to downgrade one spot. Probably Chet, something like this. I mean, Williams, and we could upgrade another spot. So, pretty easy to build on FanDuel. Definitely tougher on DK to fit more than one stud. But like I said, if you're fading Luca on DK, I would try to get LeBron, Reeves, and SGA personally, or you could go more balanced and just get, I don't know, SGA and Reeves or SGA and LeBron. I do prefer Reeves over LeBron, where Reeves is cheaper. I don't think that's a hot take though, but certainly LeBron on FanDuel, where he's a little bit cheaper, looks really, really good. Any other questions, guys? Please get them in. I'll take them all today. James Golden, value lock, spend up, leverage lock. So value lock for me. Let's sort by value on DK. I think it's Dort, and like Dort could have 10 fantasy points. It's gonna suck, but just knowing he's probably gonna push 30 minutes, not 40 minutes. I wish push 30 minutes for me is enough. So Dort is probably the guy, and I'm not someone who plays Dort frequently. I just think he's going to be out there enough to get there. Second in line would probably be Dylan Harper. So I hate using the L word, James. Like I don't like it, but if I had to, those would be the two. And then spend up leverage, sorting by OF index right now. We see Luca as chalk. I think it would have to be Reeves over on DK. 30% feels low to him. SGA would be another, but like I said, I'm still trying to get to Luca as much as possible. Reeves is the leverage play over on FanDuel, though. Maybe play him instead of LeBron and hope LeBron doesn't have a great shooting night. Or if you're getting away from Luca, play those two together. Feel really, really good about that. Chet, to me, too, is definitely under-owned on DK. So I'd throw him into that category as well. Royce O'Neal, Anthony, high ceiling but low floor, very much boomer bust. He's a good pivot off someone like Harrison Barnes, though. They're very similar. Like they're both going to hang out around the 3 point line, play some good defense, play all the minutes. So yeah, I like him as a tournament play. Definitely has some risk involved, though. Just keep that in mind. He did finally shoot well last time out, though. He is streaky, so you could play Royce. Jose saying J Dub or Holmgren. My gut says J Dub. The usage has just been tremendous for him. Yeah, we have J Dub a little bit higher than Holmgren in the model, so I'd lean J Dub on that one. Holy smokes, Carlson dirt cheap. Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, I don't think Carlson's bad, and I brought him up earlier. I do think in a blowout, if you don't want to play Oso, he's still not in the model. But again, with Hartenstein out, he does seem to be in the rotation. He's going to need the game to blow out, I think, to do what he did here against Dallas or Utah. Because look at this. Like, they won the Utah game by 30, the OKC game by 20. When they're close, 3 fantasy points. Like, the minutes just aren't there. But if you're building for a blowout, I do think Carlson's someone you can mix in. I just don't know that he's going to play more than 8 minutes if that game stays close. So just keep that in mind. Hope that helps. Need that with the counter here, saying Kenrich makes much more sense than Carlson. I'll say this: in a competitive game, Kenrich is going to play more minutes than Carlson. He's the other guy who's going to play the whole fourth quarter though with Carlson though. So you could play both honestly if you're really playing into that blowout. Like maybe you just play these two value pieces from OKC. Assume Phoenix stinks. OKC gets there in three quarters, but doesn't hit value. You could play Kenrich with Carlson, but you're going to look at the game logs. It's going to be extremely similar, right? We had two games over 20 minutes when they were blowouts. Competitive game though, he is the higher floor play compared to Carlson, but not necessarily the type of floor play you want, even on a two-game slate, because he's not going to be super involved here if this game is competitive, in my opinion. But again, if you're building for the blowout, it's Carlson and Kenrich. And yeah, obviously Isaiah Joe's a guard, but they've been kind of weird with the guards. I think we could still see, I don't know, Case and Walls play a little bit late. Youngblood just hasn't been getting there. Caruso could play a few extra minutes, Wiggins, Mitchell. But the two bigs in Williams and Carlson are the guys I think if this game were to blow out are the ones that are going to really hit a ceiling for you. So maybe that's how you kind of build it. Yeah, Rocket gonna rewind. Yeah, some technical difficulties again, man, but I think we did a pretty good job hitting it solo. Yeah, guys, any last minute questions? I think we're just about done. I'm gonna check the news real quick. I'll do one hit on the model, quick refresh here because we can. But yeah, I think we got this nailed down. Again, love Luca tonight. He's my favorite pay up. If you're not playing him though, definitely get Reeves, LeBron in your lineups. I think he could fit almost anything you want over on FanDuel. Also, Iguodala, one of my favorite value plays in tournaments today. I think the safest value play is probably going to be Lou Dort. And when I say value, I mean like sub 4K value. If you're in the mid range, I think Barnes is probably pretty decent as chalk. Dylan Harper looks excellent. He's going to be very popular though. But yeah, sorting by value, we got Dort at the top, followed by Cornette, followed by Reeves on DK. So that tells you all you need to know over there. Rui rating is the second highest value play over on FanDuel. So he looks pretty good there as well. Dylan B over Grayson, yes. Brooks' usage has been north of 30% every game with Booker out. Grayson just hasn't really been there yet. Dylan B all day from the Rocket. Royce boost too. Yeah, it's a small boost for him. But like I said, I do think he's a decent pivot off of a very chalky Harrison Barnes. They're essentially the same player, in my opinion. Obviously, Barnes a little bit more athletic, and kind of slash to the rim a bit better. But what they do when their teams are playing well is 3-and-D. So if we're getting a very similar player, similar minutes, we actually have O'Neal for one more minute. I don't think it's crazy to use him as a tournament pivot, but I do think Barnes is much safer. So keep that in mind. And again, the late game has a total that's almost 20 points higher. Spread's almost 10 points closer. So if you're playing one of the two games, I do think the late game makes more sense, but the field's getting there pretty aggressively. So just keep that in mind. Goodwin, very popular. That's pretty interesting. Don't mind it, but like I said, I'd rather get Gillespie or Brooks. Goodwin hasn't been getting there as consistently with Booker out. Kind of Gillespie's direct backup, which is interesting. But yeah, maybe we see a big game out of Allen or Neal. They've been kind of hit or miss. But like I said, Iguodala's been closing over Williams. Not that I love him as a play, but to open up salary to get you an extra stud in there with Luca, I do think he makes a lot of sense. All right, that just about does it, everyone. Again, we got Jayhawk in the Discord today at 7 p.m. taking up until lock. If there's any late news, he'll definitely talk you through that. As always, like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out the links in the description below. You get access to the model we're using throughout the video. And Rui, yeah, Z, you could definitely play Rui. He looks better on FanDuel. The minutes are going to be there. Minutes matter on a two-game slate. Don't love his ceiling, but I do think he has a high floor. Similar play to Dort. A little bit riskier, maybe a bit more upside, but definitely get to some Rui. I'm fine with it. But again, like, subscribe, check out the links. We got the Discord going. We got the model. We have the new multi-lineup builder as well. If you're looking to get into MME, there is a video in this channel if you want to check that out. It shows all the new features, all that good stuff. But yeah, fun one tonight. NBA Cup. Hopefully we still see some competitive basketball. Looking forward to it. But have fun. Good luck, everyone. Take care. Have a great night.